The duty officer opened the eye hole to the cell. The woman on the bunk looked more awake than when she'd been dragged in hours ago.
Nothing.
She'd said her name was, but he'd heard that one before. It was the kind of name women of her sort gave when they didn't want you knowing too much.
You okay?
He called through the grill.
What do you care?
She muttered in a slurred accent.
You sober enough to leave?
No.
I think you are.
Fuck off. Where am I meant to go this time of night?
Not my problem, darling. This ain't a DOS house. You might get away with that across the city line, but not here. This is city proper, love.
She sighed. That's all she fucking needed. No money for a lodging house. Far too late for the spike. Johnny would be tucked up in bed by now, the jammy git. Still, it had been her idea when they pawned his boots. Maybe a beer house was still open. Maybe she could get someone to stand her a drink. Maybe. She didn't have much choice anyway, not with this miserable old shunter about to chuck her out. And he did. Out on the street, cold night air hit her like a slap. She paused on the step and pulled her shawl tighter.
Here we go again,
She muttered.
Good night, old cock.
She called out to the desk guard as she left. Kate, her real name, never gave it unless she had to. Life had taught her that much. She looked up and down the street, empty, cold, unforgiving. So, what next?
Cozy moved swiftly through the dim streets, each footstep quiet on the slick cobbles. Piotr's instructions echoed in his mind. Use the chaos to create more chaos. Stoke division. No opportunity must be missed. This was not violence for violence's sake, not entirely. It was theater. Disruption. A slow poison dripped into the city's veins. The streets were nearly empty now. Somewhere in the distance, a police whistle shrilled, sharp and urgent. A crowd was gathering. A new discovery, perhaps? Perfect. Coase kept to the shadows, cutting through alleys and slipping between gaslit corners until he reached Goulston Street. He paused beneath an open archway and glanced quickly over his shoulder. No one. From his coat, he took a piece of chalk and wrote the words carefully, deliberately. A message, cryptic, divisive, designed to inflame. The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing. He smiled. It meant nothing, but it would mean everything. To the frightened, to the angry, to the desperate looking for someone, anyone, to blame. He tucked the chalk away, gave the street one last glance, and then slipped into the darkness of the alley, vanishing. Mission complete.
Something had shifted inside him. Something rotten, twisted, broken. The urges, the rampages, the chaos. They'd hollowed him out, turned him into something unrecognizable. Tommy stood in the bedroom, hands dripping with blood. His chest rose and fell slowly, rhythmically, like nothing had happened at all. Behind him, Lucy lay curled in the bed, pale with terror, eyes wide, frozen. A knock. The door creaked open, and Gabe stepped in, and stopped dead. He took in the sight of his brother, shirt torn, face blank, soaked in blood. Gabe's voice cracked with disbelief.
What the fuck? Where the hell have you been?
Tommy didn't answer.
Tommy?
Gabe pressed, his tone sharper now, urgent, silent.
Tommy.
Finally, Tommy raised his eyes, flat, distant, soulless. A long moment passed.
Business?
He said at last.
I've been out on business.
Gabe scoffed, staring at the blood.
What? At the fucking abattoir?
Tommy didn't flinch.
You know where. The International Workers' Club.
Gabe's face tightened.
Yeah, that's what fucking worries me. There's been a murder down there.
Tommy's eyes narrowed, his voice a cold rasp.
Not by me?
Gabe stared at him, nodded slowly, but didn't believe a word.
You better get cleaned up, mate.
He said low. Tommy stepped past him and vanished down the hall. Lucy finally moved, turning her face toward Gabe. Their eyes met across the dim room. No words passed between them, but the question hung heavy in the air, unspoken, undeniable. What the fuck had Tommy done?
The gentlemen lounged in their club, a haze of cigar smoke thick in the air. Leather chairs creaked as one crossed his legs and took a long draw.
If you ask me,
He said, exhaling slowly.
he's doing God's work.
You always were a heartless bastard.
The second replied, reaching for his glass.
You were in India.
The first gave a dry smile.
My dear fellow, I found the average Indian had far more spirit than the feckless scum choking the alleys of our own fair city.
Perhaps,
Said the second.
but our concern lies here, and the so-called feckless scum should know their place.
So,
The first inquired.
what are you suggesting?
Fighting. Fire with fire, old boy.
The first raised an eyebrow.
You recall when our friends Tommy and Gabe were last here? They mentioned a rather distasteful brute. Ivan, I believe.
I can't say the name rings a bell.
Well,
The second said, swirling his port.
men like him are capable of anything.
And what makes you think he'd help us?
The second man chuckled.
Come now, don't be so naive. Everyone has their price.
A long pause passed between them.
So,
Said the first.
you're suggesting...
I'm suggesting nothing at all.
He said with a smile.
Only that we should be prepared. Should Tommy fail to deliver, we'll require a plan B.
The glasses clinked softly. The fire crackled. And outside, in the filth and shadows of the East End, pawns moved into place, none of them the wiser.
The cold, still body lay on the mortuary slab. The doctor had just completed the post-mortem. A photographer had taken an image of the victim's face for identification purposes. Nearby, Aberlin, Reed and Walt watched as the doctor vigorously scrubbed his hands at the sink.
I just can't understand it.
The doctor muttered, shaking his head.
And neither can my wife. Why do these women risk walking the streets with a lunatic on the loose?
Aberlin stepped forward.
Thing is, Doctor, we're not entirely sure it is the same killer.
The doctor snorted.
Oh, I think there's every chance it is. The throat, cut in the same fashion, is it not?
Reed interjected.
You tell us.
I would say so, Inspector.
The doctor replied with certainty. Aberlin narrowed his eyes.
Then why no mutilations?
The doctor gave a dry laugh.
That's your mystery, Inspector.
The three officers exchanged looks.
Any thoughts on that yourself, Doctor?
Walt asked. The doctor nodded.
Yes. Given another murder occurred in the city barely an hour later, I suspect he was interrupted here. He's targeting women often presumed to be unfortunates.
That can't be proved categorically.
Aberline cut in.
No, but it's widely assumed, isn't it?
Aberline frowned.
Just because a woman's out at night doesn't mean she's on the game.
Quite.
The doctor allowed.
But we can't presume to understand how this maniac thinks. In his mind, simply being alone in a dark alley may be enough to brand a woman as fair game.
Reed and Walt exchanged glances.
So you believe these killings are sexually motivated?
Reed said.
Even though no sexual act has taken place?
The doctor exhaled slowly.
Perhaps the man, I'm quite certain it is a man, is incapable of intercourse. Penetration by a blunt instrument, as with Smith and Tarbram, suggests a form of surrogate sexual expression. Nichols and Chapman had their reproductive organs specifically targeted. I believe the woman found in Mitre Square suffered similar injuries.
Aberline nodded grimly.
That aligns with our notes.
The doctor pressed the point.
So, if it's not sexual, then why not simply bludgeon them? Why go to such extremes?
Walt flinched slightly at the bluntness.
That's a bit harsh, Doctor.
But these murders are harsh, Detective.
The doctor replied.
And by all accounts, this last one in Mitre Square was the worst yet.
What are you suggesting?
Aberline asked.
I believe the killer finds sexual satisfaction in what he does after death, and being unable to carry that out here because he was interrupted left him deeply frustrated.
Aberline folded his arms.
That fits. A man named Dimmy found the body in Dutfield's yard while returning from market. The victim, likely Long Liz, was already dead, but still warm.
Exactly,
the doctor said.
That suggests he was disturbed before he could finish what he intended. And so, blood racing, urges unchecked, he went hunting again.
Even with police swarming the streets?
Reed asked.
Yes,
the doctor answered firmly.
In his heightened state, he wouldn't care. His only thought would be fulfilling that compulsion.
Reed rubbed his jaw.
That's a frightening thought.
The doctor nodded solemnly.
Most sexual urges can be masked, but when this man's blood is up, he's no longer in control.
He glanced between them.
That's why you haven't found him. He could be anyone.
Then he added, with a shake of his head,
And that, gentlemen, is why neither I nor my wife can understand why these women risk themselves night after night. Surely the casual ward or selling matchsticks is safer than this.
Reed couldn't stay silent.
But that's not living, Doctor. Scraping together a few pennies, heading down the pub, sharing a gin, having a sing-song. It gives you something, makes you feel human, even for just an hour.
The doctor frowned.
That's still a dangerous gamble.
When you've got nothing,
Reed replied quietly.
you cling to whatever makes you feel something. Anything. Even if it only lasts the night.
The doctor paused, thoughtful. He still didn't entirely understand, but he no longer argued the point.
Well, I wish you luck, gentlemen. This case isn't as simple as some think.
He dried his hands and made his way to the door.
Good day.
And with that, he left them in silence, the weight of it all lingering in the sterile tiled room.
John Kay stood cap in hand, staring in disbelief at the cold, broken body of the woman he had known as Katie. She wasn't just a companion. To him, she was his wife, in all but name. She had been married before, with children by another man. But none of that mattered. They'd been through so much together. He remembered the summer they'd walked all the way to Kent, hoping to earn a few bob hop picking. The weather had ruined the crop. They'd come back empty-handed, with nothing but blistered feet and hungry bellies. He'd pawned his boots for fourpence. Fourpence. That was the last thing they had. Now, standing in the sterile mortuary, John's mind drifted to the final time he had seen her alive. The memory came sharp, clear, like a photograph in motion. They had been standing on Commercial Street face to face, deciding what to do next. Her hand was on his chest. He could still feel it, that gentle warmth, reassuring, grounding.
It's okay, John. Don't worry about it.
She'd said with her soft lilt.
You take the fourpence and get yourself a bed. I'll go over the river, see if I can find my daughter and borrow a bit off her.
No, Katie, sweetheart,
He'd said.
I don't mind carrying the banner. It'll be safer for you.
She'd smiled at him, defiant. That spark in her eyes he'd loved so well.
Don't be bloody silly. I'm a big girl now. No madman's coming after me. In fact, if he sees me, he'll probably run the other bloody way.
She laughed. He didn't.
Don't say that.
He'd replied, shaking his head.
You need to look after yourself.
I'll be all right, John. Anyway, I'm going south of the river. He's not down there, is he?
He hadn't been sure. No one was sure.
Okay, but just be careful, please.
She had wrapped her arms around him. Warm, tight, and perfect. That hug had lifted his spirits more than anything else could. She had always been able to do that. She had a way about her.
It makes more sense for you to get the DOS money anyway, if you think about it.
She said with a final smile. He hadn't wanted to think about it.
You sure your daughter'll be there?
Don't worry about me. I'll be all right.
Those were her last words to him. She turned, gave him that little sideways wink, and disappeared into the crowd. Now, in this silent place of cold stone and colder flesh, John stood motionless. A city police constable asked him something, but the words didn't register. John just nodded. Then he stepped out into the noisy, indifferent street, the world rushing by, oblivious. He stood still, as though the pavement had rooted him in place. Inside, he felt hollow, empty, lost in a way he'd never known was possible. Katie was gone, and he had never felt so utterly alone.
Mary Jane, for her part, had been pleased to have been down the highway the night of the double event. She knew the Radcliffe Highway well enough. She even went back to Mrs. Boku's with a young sailor, paid for the room for the night, and used the coin to keep herself in another, less salubrious lodging when needed. She made do, as she always had. The money she had made from the raid had paid for the rent arrears with macca and a few drinks down the highway. But now was the time for Mary Jane to return. word came down soon enough, the all clear, but it carried a sour taste. Macca had spread it quiet and careful, the word that the woman who'd been the legger's moll on Moses was the same poor soul found by workmen at the site of New Scotland Yard. Just a torso, butchered and dumped. Nothing to identify her otherwise, but Macca's reputation was gospel enough. If he said it, it stuck. Mary Jane was back, and Barney was a happy man again, but for how long?
Blind beggar midday. The back room smelled of old beer and pipe smoke. Paddy and Toby sat at their usual corner table halfway through their dinner-time pints. The door creaked open, and the barmaid swept in with 2 fresh beers. She dropped them on the table with a thud.
You're a bloody mind reader, girl.
Paddy grinned.
Like an angel sent from the gods.
Piss off, you lazy bastards.
She snapped.
Next time, get your own bloody drinks. I've got better things to do than wait on you 2 wasters all day.
Paddy winked.
You always were a charmer, girl.
Fuck off,
was her curt reply. After the barmaid had returned to her work, Toby looked across the table at Paddy.
Where do you reckon he is right now?
Paddy shrugged.
What are you thinking?
Toby pulled a long knife from under his coat. Paddy scoffed.
Now that's clever. You get caught with that at the moment, they'll bloody lynch you.
Got any better ideas?
Paddy thought for a second.
No,
he said, shaking his head.
But we need some fucking money, mate.
Dip in?
Paddy shook his head again.
Nah, I'm gonna pay a few visits. Most people think you've lost your bottle. I haven't.
Bollocks. Macca's got our old hunting ground now.
That's not his game, Toby. I reckon that was just coincidence.
What are you gonna do?
Take a couple of the new lads, pay a few visits.
Think you're the boss now, do you?
No, but you said you were gonna find Ivan.
Toby scowled.
And you're not coming with me?
Not right now. I told you, I need some fucking money.
Oh, right. So I'll just go after Ivan on my own then, shall I?
You find out where he's lodging.
Paddy said calmly.
And meet me back here. We'll sort him together. Yeah?
Toby hesitated, then nodded.
Yeah, okay.
Paddy nodded too, watching Toby closely now. He could see it. Toby was really falling to pieces.
And leave the butcher's knife here before you get yourself hung.
Toby said nothing. He just stared at the open fire in the corner. Paddy stood, grabbed his coat, and called out of the door for the boys. He took one last look at Toby, still motionless by the fire.
Meet you back here, yeah?
Toby gave a slow, absent-minded nod. Didn't say a word. Paddy rolled his eyes, shook his head, and left. Toby stared at the knife for a moment. Then, after a brief silence, he slipped it back into his pocket.
Rosie sat hunched in the corner on the ragged bed, looking as worn and threadbare as the blanket tangled beneath her. Her arms wrapped tightly around her knees, chin resting on them, eyes hollow and distant. Like some frightened creature, she stared across the room at Ivan as he devoured a steaming plate of stew and bread. He looked up and caught her watching.
You okay? You don't look well.
He growled. She looked away without answering. He chewed loudly, wiping his mouth on his sleeve.
You've done well,
he said through a mouthful.
Could probably do with some rest now.
He grinned, crumbs caught in the corner of his mouth.
Shame, really. 'Cause I need some more money.
He laughed, low and cold. Rosie flinched. Her body ached, her head throbbed, and the world spun just slightly when she moved. She wanted to die, truly, quietly. And by the way her chest burned and her skin trembled, she reckoned maybe she soon would. Still, no one would notice. No one would come. No one ever did. She coughed, a dry, tearing sound that seemed to rake up from deep inside her. She clutched her chest. Ivan watched her with vague interest as he wiped up the last of his food with a chunk of bread.
You are looking very rough,
he said flatly.
Reckon you've caught something. Gets bloody cold in here, don't it?
He pushed his chair back. It scraped across the floor with a screech.
I'm off out,
he said, reaching into his coat and producing a key.
Gonna rustle up a bit more custom. Don't worry. I'll be back soon.
He smirked.
And you'll be safe.
With a final chuckle, he stepped out, locking the door behind him. Toby had spent the better part of 3 hours stalking the Whitechapel streets, through smoky pubs, seedy beer houses,
and every festering rookery he could think of. Places Ivan had been known to lurk. Places where a shilling could buy you a drink or get you stabbed. The shilling in Toby's pocket was nearly gone. So was his patience. The streets stank of piss and soot. The drink did nothing to fill his belly, and the knife hidden in his coat pocket felt heavier with every passing minute. His chest ached, not from exertion, but from something deeper. Desperation. The helpless kind. The kind that made a man chew on his rage like a bad tooth. Eventually, exhausted and bitter, he dropped himself onto a broken bench in Itchy Park. 2 old bag women already occupied it, dressed in layers of mouldy rags, stinking of piss and turpentine and death. But Toby couldn't be bothered to care. He slumped there, hollow-eyed, watching the circus of poverty and crime unfold before him like a grim pageant. A beggar woman dragged 2 ragged children behind her, their skeletal arms clinging to her filthy skirts. She scolded them under her breath at every step, sharp, cruel little curses, except when a well-dressed passerby appeared. Then her tone softened, her voice took on a theatrical whimper. Sympathy meant coins, and coins meant bread. Maybe gin. A few feet away, a decrepit man, probably once a proud tradesman, knelt in the gutter. He was picking through horse manure and blackened debris, eyes scanning like a rat at the edge of starvation. He found the bare stem of a grape, brought it to his lips, chewed. Nothing. Then an old orange peel, dry and bitter, and tried to suck whatever trace of sweetness remained. It was futile. With a bitter hiss, he spat it to the cobbles, not in anger, in despair. Toby said nothing. He just watched. Across the street was the unmistakable figure of Teddy No-Legs, from Kingston, Jamaica, well known in the East End and a permanent fixture on the crossing. A sweeper with a wide, toothy grin and a lilting patois accent. Teddy had become a regular in the pubs, always nursing a half-pint, and telling his tale of injustice to anyone willing to listen. His legs were gone, not to war or accident, but to a seaman's frostbite and the madness of men in charge. He'd been working as a cook aboard a merchant ship rounding the Cape when the cold seized his limbs. The master, in his infinite wisdom, decided that the best cure was to shove Teddy's feet in the ship's oven to thaw the frost out. They burst like overripe fruit. 5 months in hospital followed. By the end of it, they'd taken both legs off just below the knees. Now here he was, pushing his broom with one hand and dragging himself along with a battered crutch in the other. Still waiting for the payout he'd been promised. Still telling himself it would come. But everyone else knew it never would. Toby sighed. What was he doing? What hope did any of them have? Then he saw him, Ivan. Emerging from the narrow moor of a side alley, collar turned up, eyes shifting, looking shady, like always. But this time, more so. This time, like a man who had something to hide. Toby's body stiffened. His fingers instinctively curled around the handle of the blade in his pocket. He thumbed the edge gently, still sharp, still deadly. He stood. No hesitation, no plan, just instinct. He stepped off the bench and into the chaos of Whitechapel, eyes locked on the back of the man he had been hunting. And this time, he wasn't letting him out of his sight. Toby had trailed even through the winding sprawl of Whitechapel, ducking in and out of drinking holes, alleys, and filthy lanes. Ivan looked shifty, more so than usual, and Toby's instincts buzzed with a reckless kind of purpose. He didn't notice the shift, the slight slowness to Ivan's gait, the casual glances over his shoulder, didn't clock that he was being allowed to follow. Then Ivan slipped down a narrow cut between 2 tenements, a piss-stinking gully leading to a crumbling courtyard surrounded by leaning outhouses and broken fences. Toby followed, hesitated a second, but pressed on. His knife was warm in his pocket. His gut burned from more than hunger. A sudden noise behind him, too fast to react. Ivan. He was on him in seconds, slipping from behind the outhouse. The grin on his face wasn't surprise, it was satisfaction.
Looking for me, are you, big boy?
He rasped. Toby swung, wild, desperate. The knife slashed the air. Ivan smiled.
Oh, and you have bought me a little present, so kind of you.
Ivan said calmly, his comment dripping in irony. Toby raged, but Ivan was too fast. He caught Toby's arm, twisted it with bone-popping precision, then wrapped the other thick arm around his neck and squeezed. Toby choked, legs kicking, vision swimming in sparks. He felt the knife leave his hand, then felt it again, this time deep and final, buried into the meat of his back. His legs folded. Ivan let him crumple. Then with a grunt, he dragged Toby's twitching form by the arms into one of the nearby outhouses. The smell of human filth hung thick, but Ivan didn't care. He sat Toby's broken body on the rotten wood of the seat, blood smearing the walls. He shut the door gently, like a man leaving a privy after a quiet visit, wiped his hands on his coat and stepped back into the alley, glancing in every direction. Calm, controlled. Behind him, somewhere in the court, a woman screamed, a high, ragged sound that bounced off the bricks. Ivan didn't flinch. He was already gone. Rosie lay on the bed, pale, sweating and shivering. Her cough was persistent, painful and dry, her throat like razor blades. Ivan entered, followed by two feral men, shifty, dirty and emotionless. Ivan went to the bed and felt Rosie's head. She was barely conscious and she was coughing up blood. One of the feral men looked at her.
Here, you ain't charging for her. Look at the state of her. We're liable to catch something.
The other feral man agreed. He turned and looked at the men with a cold, hard glare.
Yeah, we want our fucking money back,
said the second feral man. Ivan took another look at Rosie and then back at the men. He took money out of his pocket and threw it on the table without a word. The men eagerly snapped it up and left, slamming the door behind them. Ivan turned back to Rosie. She coughed. A little blood trickled down the side of her mouth.
Seems you have outstayed your usefulness, young lady.
There was no pity, no remorse, and no mercy. Now, Ivan thought, how to get rid of the body without anyone seeing him. The barmaid from the Blind Beggar heard the doors to the back room bang shut. She was busy out front pulling pints, but just assumed it was Toby and Paddy back from whatever mischief they'd been up to. Probably about to hassle her to take a few jars through, she thought, rolling her eyes. After serving a couple of punters and handing things off to the younger girl behind the bar, she slipped through the door into the back. She stopped dead. 3 men sat around the table, strangers, thick-set and broad, all wearing long brown leather coats that reeked of damp and power. One had his boots up on the table, grinning.
Now that, he said, is a pleasant surprise. The perfect drinking den, and the beautiful serving lady to wait on our every need.
The barmaid didn't smile. She wasn't stupid.
Who the fuck are you? Where's Paddy? Where's Toby?
The man with the boots, Stan, just beamed. His 2 mates chuckled darkly, their eyes crawling over her.
Didn't they tell you, love?
Stan asked.
They've gone off on a little seaside holiday. Bit of air, bit of sun, change of scenery.
More laughter, low, cruel. The barmaid's stomach turned. She didn't like this one bit. Stan stood slowly, smoothed down his coat, walked towards her with the easy confidence of someone who knew he wasn't going to be stopped.
So me and the lads,
he said, arms outstretched like a priest giving a sermon.
Figured we'd keep an eye on things while they're away.
He smiled again, that smug, knowing grin. And in that smile, the truth was clear. Toby and Paddy weren't coming back. Not here. Not now. Maybe not ever. The Blind Beggar had new owners.
Upstairs at the Chandler's shop in Dorset Street, Macca was taking a well-earned rest after a long night. The shop hadn't shut till 3, and now he lay sprawled on the bed, dozing, boots still on. Beth, his wife, walked in and rolled her eyes.
How many times have I bloody told you to get your boots off the bed?
Macca feigned confusion.
I can't remember you ever telling me that.
Beth ignored him.
It's chaos out there.
I'm not surprised,
Macca mumbled.
What did you say?
She asked sharply.
I said I'm not surprised.
Beth folded her arms, her stance full of warning.
I bet old Johnny Upright's pulling his hair out,
Macca added. Beth snorted.
Well, his lot down at Lehman Street should be pulling their fucking fingers out. You know what they're calling him now, don't you?
Macca sat up, rubbing his face.
Yeah, Mary Jane said, Jack the Ripper.
Beth nodded grimly.
She's pulling her hair out too.
Macca rolled his eyes.
I suppose I'm going to get the blame for that, am I?
Beth frowned.
Why?
It was me Barney was nicking the fish for. That's what got him the sack.
Beth shrugged.
Yeah, but it was that greedy cow's fault for goading him into it. I bet she regrets that now.
Macca looked at her.
Why's that?
Beth tilted her head.
Don't you hear them? They're always bloody arguing.
Yeah.
Macca said with a sigh.
She's not the same girl.
Beth's voice dropped a touch.
Are you surprised?
Why?
Being on the game down here, there's only one way it ends, Macca. You know that only too well.
Macca lay back down on the bed, staring at the ceiling, contemplating the misery that clung to Whitechapel.
Yeah, shame, really.
Beth gave his boots a kick with hers.
Anyway, Harry's looking for you.
Macca sat up.
What for?
Apparently there's a new lot in the Blind Beggar causing a stir.
Macca propped himself on his elbows, a smirk spreading.
Yeah, but it's only Stan the Man and his boys.
Who's Stan the Man?
Geezer from the Radcliffe Highway. Heard there was an opening. Probably thinks he can make a name for himself.
Beth narrowed her eyes.
Trouble?
Nah.
Macca replied with a grin.
He's all horse shit and bluff. Nice guy, really. Gentle giant.
Beth didn't look convinced.
Harry didn't seem to think so.
Harry never does.
Macca got up, adjusting his crotch. Beth winced.
Do you mind?
Macca laughed.
Why? You up for a bit, girl?
She gave him that look. He grinned.
On second thoughts, me, Harry and Caleb better pay Stan a visit. Let him know not to overstep the mark.
Beth glanced away.
Dunno if you'll find Caleb.
No?
No, him and Mary Jane went off somewhere earlier.
Macca raised his eyebrows and laughed.
Oh dear. Old Loverboy's gonna love that.
Beth nodded.
Pretty sure he don't know.
Macca chuckled.
Probably better it stays that way, the way those two are getting on.
Stan sat back in his chair, boots up on the table, the remains of a meal pushed lazily to one side. His eyes were closed, head resting on his interlocked fingers, like a man without a care in the world. He didn't see the two figures slip into the room, but his two henchmen did. And they cared. They stiffened, easy swagger evaporating into a tight, twitchy stillness. Because they both recognized the man who had just stepped in, Macca, and they knew exactly what he was capable of. A respectful silence spread through the room. Stan must have felt it. His eyes opened slowly. Standing in the doorway, Macca smiled, wide, wicked, wolfish.
Well, 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 he said. If the devil was to cast his net.
Stan sat up, boots hitting the floor with a dull thud. The cocky mask slipped just enough to notice.
Macca?
Hello, Stanley.
Macca replied smoothly.
They chuck you off the highway then?
Stan shrugged.
Nah. Just heard there was an opportunity going round here.
Macca raised his brows, feigning curiosity.
Oh yeah? And who told you that then?
Stan gave a vague shrug, suppressing a smile.
Just heard it, really. Word gets about.
Macca nodded slowly, as if indulging a child.
Not been to the Crown on Mile End Road by any chance?
Stan blinked, playing dumb.
Not to my recollection.
Macca grinned, reading him like a book.
Oh well. Hey, boys.
He glanced around the room, sizing them up.
You'll have to pop down and see me. We might be able to do a bit of business.
Stan and his boys nodded quickly.
Of course,
Stan said.
Wouldn't mind that.
Good,
Macca said, turning to leave.
Catch you later then.
Pleasantries were exchanged, on the surface, calm and civil, but beneath it, the warning lingered in the air. Everyone returned to their business, but nobody forgot the visit.
Sunday morning in Whitechapel. The church bells chimed as the light crept through the window. Mary Jane sat on the edge of the bed, head thumping. Saturday night hadn't been bad for once. A bit of a laugh, a song, and no fights. That made a change. A few drinks in, and someone always seemed to push her temper. Barney said it was her who started it. She always said it wasn't. Best not to argue, he'd learnt. He'd once called her a right moody bitch. That hadn't gone down well. Though later they'd laughed, she glanced at him now, snoring. The bells had woken her and she couldn't get back to sleep. Fuck it. She pulled on her boots and slipped out, closing the door softly behind her. At the end of the court, beneath the archway, she stopped to get her bearings. Macca was outside his shop, surveying the street like it belonged to him.
Oh dear,
he said when he saw her.
Heavy night?
Not especially.
I take it a lady such as yourself up at this fine hour is off to church.
He smirked. Mary Jane glared at him with mock offence.
Course I am.
I'm a good God-fearing girl.
I knew it.
Macca grinned.
I said to Beth just the other day that Mary Jane's pure as the driven snow.
Coincidental?
She shot back.
I was just saying to Barney what a piss-taking old git Macca is.
Rich, that coming from you.
He laughed. She rolled her eyes.
Got any mother's blessing?
Got any rent?
She gave a shrug.
Might surprise ya.
Yeah, you're always full of surprises.
She smiled sweetly.
Nicest thing anyone's ever said to me.
Don't give me that.
Macca said.
Loverboy worships the ground you walk on.
Mary Jane shrugged. She never knew if Barney's obsession was a blessing or a curse. Guilt pricked her that she couldn't return it fully.
I'll sort you some rent this week.
Macca nodded.
Oh yeah? I heard you were out with Caleb the other day. Not another harebrained scheme you two are planning, I hope?
She hesitated, then shook her head vigorously.
No, I think I've learnt my lesson there.
Macca rolled his eyes.
Yeah? I'll believe that when I see it.
Mary Jane drifted out of Dorset Street, thinking of a morning beer in Ringers. At the market stalls, she caught sight of Ronnie's mother, Maggie, walking with a man she guessed was Ronnie's father. He had that look. The hollow eyes of men sweated half to death for scraps of survival. Mary Jane had seen it often. Barney worked hard too, but without children to feed, he could escape into the pubs, drown the drudgery. This man couldn't. Maggie spotted her, gave him a sharp nudge, made Zeb look. He barely saw. His eyes were fixed on nothing. As they passed, Maggie's stare burned into her. Mary Jane looked away. It was water off a duck's back. She'd known that look all her life, people looking down their noses. She told herself it didn't matter, but it still cut. She sighed. Yes, a drink was needed.
The muster room at Lehman Street Police Station was thick with smoke. Pipes and cigarettes fumed in tired mouths. H Division constables sat slouched around the table, boots scuffed, shirts undone. DS Alfred Foster, representing the City of London Police, sat straighter than the rest, his suit still neatly pressed despite the hour. It had been a long, fruitless deliberation. Reed stared down at the notes in front of him, pinching the bridge of his nose. His voice was low, worn out.
I just can't understand it. No money, nowhere to sleep, and yet she asked to leave the police cell.
Foster's jaw tightened. He recognized the comment for what it was. A veiled jab at the city police for releasing a woman who would be dead within the hour. But he let it pass. It's standard procedure in the city, Eddie. When someone's deemed sober enough, they're let go. Reed wasn't convinced.
But your man said she asked to be let out. That's what I'm trying to get my head around. Why?
Aberline, watching the exchange, sensed Foster's irritation. He stepped in, trying to cool the room.
He's got a point, Alfred. A night in the cells isn't so different from a doss house, and by then the pubs were all shut anyway.
There are always places still serving, Foster interrupted. Plenty of illicit dens open at that hour.
But she had no money,
Reed replied flatly. Foster raised an eyebrow. Isn't it obvious? She went out to earn some, to get back on the game. Reed frowned.
She was 45. There's no proof she was still...
She was seen, Foster snapped. Mr. Lawender came out of a club and spotted a woman matching her description, talking to a man near Mitre Square, just before the body was found. Reed scoffed.
Witnesses full of beer in the middle of the night, squinting through fog and gaslight. I wouldn't hang a man on it. We've seen how reliable that is lately.
He seemed a credible witness to me, Foster said sharply. Aberline sighed, clearly weary of the sniping between divisions.
This back and forth isn't helping anyone, Alfred. Have your officers turned up anything useful?
Foster shook his head, irritation flashing in his eyes. I'm still not happy that Sir Charles came down and rubbed out that message.
He was worried about riots,
Aberline replied.
There's been a lot of finger-pointing in the streets. Too many looking to blame the Jews.
Foster crossed his arms. Still, the spelling, J-U-W-S, it was odd. Walt, sitting back in the haze, finally spoke up.
Half the poor sods down here can't spell their own names, sir, let alone the word Jews.
Yes, Foster muttered. But some believe the unique spelling and Sir Charles's direct interference suggest something more deliberate, possibly Masonic. Aberline, a mason himself, let out a dry chuckle.
You're giving it too much thought, Alfred. You're not used to our breed of lunatic down here. In the city, maybe you don't see this kind of mania.
Perhaps not, Foster allowed, standing up and brushing the creases from his coat. But every angle should be explored. None ignored. The room lapsed into silence again. Tired faces, heavy air, frustration hung like the smoke.
Back to square one,
Reed muttered. Foster moved for the door. I'll continue to pursue Lowenda's statement. I suggest you do the same with this other fellow.
Schwartz,
Reed said with a nod. Yes, I believe his account matches Lowenda's fairly closely. Aberline agreed.
There were a few who saw Stride before she died.
Foster nodded and shrugged, not disagreeing. Everyone was simply too tired. Aberline exhaled and added,
We're still not even sure the two murders are connected. There's a possible unconfirmed statement suggesting Stride may have died in a crime of passion.
Foster nodded. All right, you keep me informed. If anything develops on our side, you'll be the first to hear it. He tipped his hat and made his way out into the night. The smoke curled in his wake and the silence remained.
Joseph still nursed 2 broken ribs and a pounding headache, but he insisted on carrying on. He sat stiffly behind his desk, flanked by Abraham and Lusky, the room thick with pipe smoke and tension. Macca stood opposite, casual as ever, but his eyes were sharp.
Why is Stan in the Blind Beggar now?
Macca asked, voice low. Abraham answered flatly.
Does it make any difference to you?
Macca shrugged.
Not the point.
Joseph and Abraham exchanged a glance. Then Joseph leaned forward slightly.
Thing is, Macca, one of our old compatriots has gone rogue.
Macca didn't need long.
Ivan?
Joseph nodded once. Lusky muttered,
Gone rogue is putting it politely.
Macca ran a hand over his stubbled jaw.
Yeah, I'd noticed. He's a fucking maniac.
The 3 committee men gave wry chuckles, grim acknowledgements more than amusement.
He had the old blind beggar mob under his boot,
Joseph continued.
So we decided to close that little playground off to him.
Exactly.
Abraham added.
And we also know he's been sniffing around Burner Street, doing deals with that workers' club lot.
Macca raised a brow.
I thought you'd be on their side.
That landed badly. Abraham's glare was ice. Lusky stiffened. Joseph kept his tone even, but cool.
I'd expect that from you, Macca.
We've had to deal with that sort of ignorance for years.
Abraham snapped. Macca looked genuinely puzzled.
What do you mean?
Joseph answered calmly.
The anarchists, the agitators, the pamphlet peddlers, and bomb dreamers. Don't confuse us with them. We hate those bastards. They give our people a bad name.
Abraham cut in, bitter.
They're trouble. Idealistic fools. And more dangerous than they know.
Lusky nodded grimly.
And now they're in bed with Ivan, which makes this everybody's problem.
Have you heard of Peter Kropotkin?
Joseph asked. Macca shrugged.
Should I have?
Joseph leaned back slightly.
An anarchist communist wants to bring the world crashing down so he can rebuild it into some sort of utopian future.
Abraham scoffed.
Deluded idiot lives in a dream world. You're never going to change human nature. Life is unfair. We all know that, but anarchy and chaos, that's not the answer.
Macca gave a wry smile.
I can see both sides. It's a dog-eat-dog world down here. Had a friend once, worked at the Bryant and May factory. Lovely girl, great singer, could have had a shot on the music hall stage.
He paused.
Jaw dropped off, phossy jaw, got it from the phosphorus in her sandwiches, from the factory air, rotten conditions.
Joseph nodded solemnly.
There are changes that have to be made, no question, but I don't think anarchy's the way to get there.
Abraham cut in again.
I take it you don't agree?
Macca shrugged.
Oh, I get it. Survival of the fittest, right? The cream rises to the top.
Abraham smirked.
Like you?
Macca's smile didn't reach his eyes.
In my trade, boys, you show weakness, you're dead.
The 3 men shared a rare moment of agreement.
That's why Ivan has to be stopped,
Joseph said.
The Black Swan was thriving. Even from across the street, Ivan could feel the hum of it. The low, throbbing pulse of music, shouting, laughter and menace. Outside, nefarious drunks, dolly mops and sharp-eyed lads on the make spilled onto the street, smoking, shouting, sizing each other up. Ivan lingered in the shadows, watching. He was patient by nature, and he'd learned long ago that good things, or dangerous ones, came to those who watched quietly. There was something about the Slade brothers that didn't sit right. They weren't just bruisers. No, there was a current running under them, something colder, older, organized. And since Toby, Paddy, and that jumped-up seamstress had kicked the hornet's nest with their little raid, things had shifted. The Black Swan had been stirred. But who really pulled the strings? Nothing moved tonight. No signal. No crack in the armor. So Ivan decided he'd come back another time. He could wait. But as he turned to leave, a flicker of movement caught his eye. Tommy. He appeared through a gate to the yard next to the pub. He hadn't seen Ivan lurking, but he was off at a pace. Chain wrapped around one fist and club in the other. Ivan grinned. He pondered what Tommy was up to and watched him disappear down an alleyway. Gabe sat at the kitchen table, hunched over a plate of fried bacon, egg, and bread, mopping up the grease with thick crusts. It had been a long night, loud, chaotic, rowdy, but for once no one ended up glassed, knifed, or dumped in the gutter. The laughter had stayed just the right side of menacing. A rarity in Whitechapel. Lucy stepped in quietly, hesitant, and took the seat opposite him. Her eyes were puffy, tired. Gabe looked up mid-chew.
"You okay, Lucy?"
he asked, mouth half full. She didn't answer right away. Just watched him, trying to find the words. He was already tense. She could see it in his shoulders.
"Where's Tommy?"
Gabe asked, reaching for another piece of bread. Lucy looked away.
"He's gone out?"
"Where?"
"He didn't say. He never says."
Gabe paused. He gave her a look, sharp, suspicious.
"You saw him the other night?"
she said quietly.
"Covered in blood."
Gabe looked down at his plate. He didn't want this conversation.
"You did?"
she pushed.
"Because I know you did."
Gabe sighed and tossed his bread aside.
"So what do you want me to say?"
Lucy's voice wavered, but she pressed on.
"You've thought the same as me. The late nights, the lies covered in blood, and these murders."
Gabe exploded. He flung his tin plate across the room. It clattered off the wall, smashing into a stack of glasses.
"Fuck off, Lucy. Of course you'd say that. You just want rid of him."
She recoiled. But she didn't argue, because it was partly true, and it hurt.
"That's right, isn't it?"
Gabe snarled.
"You want him gone, but he's my fucking brother, and you're nothing."
Lucy sat perfectly still, staring at the floor. The silence in the room was thunderous. Gabe took a breath. Regret flickered across his face.
"I'm sorry,"
he said, softer now.
"But what do you want me to do, eh? Call in the shunters?"
Lucy didn't move. She didn't look at him.
"Well?"
Gabe demanded, voice rising again. Still nothing. Just her blank gaze on the worn kitchen tiles.
"Lucy?"
"I don't want you to do anything,"
she said quietly. Then she got up, slowly, and left the kitchen. Gabe sat there alone, staring at the cold remains of his breakfast. She was right, and he knew it. He knew Tommy better than anyone, and deep down, he was starting to believe it too. That maybe, just maybe, his own brother was Jack the Ripper.
Tommy stood in the alleyway, flanked by a pack of hard-eyed men armed with chains, clubs, and long blades tucked into belts. Among them was Mickey, wild, red-faced, and barely restrained, his rage boiling over, his grief twisted into fury. They were headed for the International Workers' Men's Club, and the goal was simple: destruction, utter and total. Tommy's benefactors had made themselves clear. The anarchists were a thorn in their side, a public nuisance, a danger, and Tommy was the scalpel they'd chosen to cut them out. He hadn't slept. Not really. The previous night's events clung to him. His eyes were glass, sunken, but behind them burned a cold, inhuman stare. Tommy gave the nod. The men began to move, their boots crunching against cobblestones as they slipped into the deeper shadows of Whitechapel. The streets were eerily quiet, emptied by fear after the recent double murder. Perfect, Tommy thought. The shunters would be busy, distracted. Anarchy would go unnoticed tonight. Time to give the anarchists a taste of their own gospel. He knew he wouldn't get another chance. If he failed tonight, he was done. Dispensable. As they reached Burner Street, the club loomed in front of them, shuttered and dark, silent. Then, crash. The sharp shatter of a glass pane echoed through the stillness. A booted foot kicked the door wide. 6 men, faces masked, flooded inside, and the club was no longer silent. Tables were overturned, bottles smashed, flames set to banners, pamphlets, chairs, anything that would burn. One man dragged the printing press into the center of the room and kicked it to pieces, while another sprayed oil over the meeting table. In under 5 minutes, it was carnage. Tommy stood outside the door, listening to the destruction unfold, eyes fixed on the empty street. He felt nothing, and that was the most dangerous thing of all.
Mary Jane sat in a booth at the Horn of Plenty with a small beer. Barney was working, and she was bored. She was supposed to be waiting for Harry to collect her. Macca had lined her up to entertain some gent on his behalf. She didn't mind the odd job for Macca. No one stitched him up, and she trusted his name carried enough weight. At least she hoped it did. The beer was near flat, and she sipped it slow, trying to stretch it out. No more money left. Barney had promised that if he earned well today, he'd not only pay the rent, but take her to the Cambridge Music Hall tonight. She bloody hoped so. She needed a night out. Her gaze drifted to the window. On the street outside, she saw Rigby. Her gut twisted. God, she hated him. A scraggy, feral bastard, buck-toothed and grinning, who lived off other people's misery. Burglar, bully, the sort who'd get kids to take the risks while he took the loot. It wasn't the thieving she hated. It was Rigby. Something about him made her skin crawl. He had a boy with him, hat pulled down low. Mary Jane frowned. Then she recognized him. Ronnie. Poor little sod. Rigby had roped him in as a lookout. Typical. Exploit the weak one. The boy the others bullied. The boy desperate to belong. Rigby wouldn't think twice about leaving him to swing if things went wrong. Mary Jane drained the beer. Enough waiting. She pushed out into the street. Rigby and Ronnie slipped into an alley. Rigby worked a window while Ronnie stood jittering on the corner. Mary Jane tapped him on the shoulder. He jumped like a rabbit.
Never done this before, have you?
She asked. Ronnie blinked, tongue-tied. Mary Jane shook her head.
Don't listen to that weaselly little fucker. He won't pay you. He'll leave you to take the fall.
He promised me a crown.
Mary Jane raised her brows.
Did he? Don't hold your breath, mate.
Ronnie!
A voice rang out. His sister, Annie, came running, her face flushed. She grabbed his arm.
You heard what Mum said. Don't hang about with her.
But she's nice,
Ronnie protested.
And some bloke offered me a crown.
Shut up and come home.
Annie snapped, dragging him away. Mary Jane called after him.
Don't worry, mate. I'll get you your crown.
She stayed on the corner, folding her arms. A minute later, Rigby crawled out the window with a sack in his hands. He stopped dead when he saw her.
What the fuck do you want?
He snarled. Mary Jane held out her hand.
A crown.
I ain't giving you fuck all.
Deal's a deal, Rigby. You promised the lookout a crown, and I've been on lookout for you.
You bitch!
He spat. Mary Jane didn't move.
Shall I call for a shunter? You're a dead cert for leather apron, Rigby. Nobody likes you. They'd lynch you in the street.
Rigby's eyes flickered. Reluctantly, he pulled a coin from his pocket and dropped it into her hand.
You think you're something special, don't you? Just 'cause you've got Barney sniffing round and you're one of Macca's whores. But you ain't nothing.
Mary Jane gave a crooked smile.
Maybe not, but a deal's a deal.
He bared his buck tooth, bristling.
You'll get what's coming to you.
We all will,
she said evenly.
Sooner or later.
Far off, a police whistle shrilled. Rigby stiffened, animal quick. He threw her a final scowl before vanishing into the maze of alleys. Mary Jane looked down at the crown in her hand. The coin was grimy, oily against her skin. She felt sick to her stomach. Anything taken from Rigby left a stain.
Coase, Dimmy and Sam stood in the middle of the wreckage, the once busy printing room now a mangled ruin of ink-stained paper, smashed wood and shattered glass. Dimmy sighed, weary and bitter.
I cannot deal with this right now. I have to go to market.
Coase knelt and picked up a jagged piece of the broken ink press, examining it with quiet fury.
So who's responsible?
The committee?
Sam offered. though his voice lacked conviction.
They wouldn't be so brazen,
Dimmy said, shaking his head.
Then who?
Cozy snapped, hurling the metal scrap across the room. It clattered against the far wall.
You heard nothing?
Dimmy asked Sam, accusingly.
No,
Sam muttered, eyes downcast.
How could you not have heard anything?
Coase growled, the rage rising in his throat. Sam flared.
And where were you, Cozy? You were supposed to be here, off chasing some whore again.
Cozy's eyes blazed. He stepped forward, fists clenched.
And what's that supposed to mean?
Sam didn't flinch.
That girl who was killed, wasn't she here to see you?
Cozy's voice came low and bitter.
I didn't ask her to come. I never...
Enough!
Dimmy barked, stepping between them.
This solves nothing.
The tension held for a moment longer, then slowly eased. Both men backed off, breathing hard.
So who did this?
Dimmy said, scanning the wreckage. Sam shrugged. Cozy spat on the floor.
Could have been those animals that mugged me.
Dimmy muttered.
Or maybe Ivan. He knows too much about us.
I never trusted that bastard.
Cozy snarled. Dimmy gave the room one last look. The ruin of their cause, their message, their effort.
Clean this up. Then you and Morris go out. Start asking questions. Quietly. I want names. I want answers.
The two men nodded. Dimmy grabbed his coat and headed out the door.
To market,
he muttered grimly.
Before this gets worse.
Johnny Upright stood at the corner of Whitechapel Road and Commercial Street. Macca spotted him and ambled over, a half smile playing on his face, half enthusiastic, half mocking. He liked Billy Thick well enough, but he was tired, grumpy, and not in the mood for nonsense today.
Hello, Johnny.
Macca greeted, the tone walking the line between friendly and fed up.
All right, Macca. Got anything for me?
DS Billy Thick didn't care much for his nickname, but when it came from Macca, he let it slide. Macca gave a wry smile.
I was hoping you had good news for me, mate.
Johnny shook his head, a faintly amused look tugging at his mouth.
We had some nutter in yesterday. Claimed he'd had a vision of the Ripper on a bus.
Macca raised an eyebrow knowingly.
Oh, you lot are calling him that now too, are you? What did the visionary say?
Johnny shrugged.
Said he'd seen the killer in his dreams. Bloke's name was Robert James Lees.
Never fucking heard of him, mate.
Johnny studied the big man.
I didn't know if you might have come across him, you know. What with being friendly with Miss Lloyd and knocking about the music halls and all that.
Macca shook his head.
Nah, not come across him. Sounds more like a West End upmarket type to me.
Yeah, he's a bit of a toff.
Macca looked out at the bustle of daytime traffic.
You heard of a couple of geezers called Grand and Bachelor?
Now it was Johnny's turn to look confused.
Sounds like a pair of dodgy solicitors.
Macca laughed under his breath.
The old committee's gone and hired them as private investigators.
Johnny rolled his eyes.
Oh yeah? Sounds like they've got more money than sense.
Macca grinned.
Yeah, well, you might be right, considering they found what they reckon's a blood-stained grape stem.
Johnny gave him a look of mock astonishment.
No,
he said, deadpan.
Fuck me. They're onto something there.
Macca chuckled again.
I know, that's exactly what I thought.
He gave Johnny a friendly slap on the chest and started walking away.
See you later, Billy. Be good.
Johnny nodded.
You too, Macca.
With the increased police presence on the streets, the shunters were beginning to grow desperate. Bloodhounds had been tried and failed. Female decoys were deployed, but proved next to useless, drawing mockery and derision from the public. One poor constable even caught a punch for his trouble. The fear was spreading fast and wide. Curses were whispered. Superstition took root. Then came the box. Inside, a bloodied kidney, sent to Lusky at the Crown. Joseph and Abraham dismissed it outright. Cranks, they said, either trying to rattle the committee or worse, discredit them in the eyes of both public and police. Abraham, however, had his suspicions.
This stinks of Ivan,
he muttered.
Or the Burner Street nut job,
commented Lusky. At first, Joseph wasn't so sure, but after Lusky reported the parcel to the police, who passed it on to the London hospital for examination, even he had to admit it felt staged. Provocative, perverse, right in Ivan's wheelhouse. Aberlin wasn't impressed. He waved the whole thing off, same as he had with the pile of crank letters now flooding in daily. Bizarre boasts, taunts and threats mailed to both police and press.
This bastard doesn't write letters,
he said flatly.
He spills guts.
And still no closer to catching him.
18 hours of labor. Every bone in his body had ached, fingers cut and split, chest heavy with despair. His mind was already broken. The inquest called it death by misadventure while of unsound mind. The result was the same, a family left shattered, no money for rent, hardly a crust for food. The workhouse loomed, eternal misery waiting. Maggie was beside herself, maddened by grief and hopelessness. Zeb had stepped out in front of a heavy horse and dray on his way home. The driver swore he hadn't seen him until it was too late. Whether Zeb had meant it or not, no one would ever know. He hadn't spoken a word for 2 days before. Ronnie was broken-hearted. He missed his dad so. Mary Jane listened as the boy poured his heart out. She had sought him out to give him his crown, but it was perfect timing. The rent was due tomorrow, and Maggie and Anna hadn't made enough from the matchboxes.
Have you eaten?
Mary Jane asked. The boy shook his head.
Not for a day or two.
Mary Jane swallowed. She was short herself, but she'd bought a hot potato from a costermonger. She pressed it into his hands. It was all she could give. She had troubles of her own.
Lucy was too scared to speak. Tommy's usual bad moods and hair-trigger temper had twisted into something far worse. A constant, malevolent rage that simmered just beneath the surface, ready to explode at any moment. He had descended, if such a thing were even possible, into complete mental disintegration. Even Gabe had noticed. But why? What had driven him to this? There were moments Tommy would sit in silence, his jaw clenched, fists balled tight, seething. It was terrifying. Lucy no longer felt safe in the same room. She tried to keep others nearby when she could, though deep down she knew that if Tommy truly wanted to hurt her, no one would be able to stop him. Gabe was at the end of his tether. For all Tommy's many flaws, he'd always had a head for business. But now, even that was slipping. He couldn't focus, couldn't follow a conversation. He was unraveling in front of everyone. Gabe found himself asking the question he'd been avoiding for days. When does a brother finally admit that his own flesh and blood needs to be locked away, or worse? That morning began, like so many before it, steeped in quiet fear. Everyone tiptoed around Tommy, careful not to say the wrong thing, to breathe the wrong way. But it didn't take much anymore. Tommy seemed eager for a reason to snap. So when Gabe heard the shouts, Lucy's terrified screams, Tommy's guttural roars of rage, he knew what was happening before he even reached the door. He burst into the room to find Tommy with his hands locked around Lucy's throat.
Get off her!
Gabe bellowed, grabbing at Tommy's shoulders, trying to pry him away. But Tommy threw him off like a rag doll, sending Gabe crashing to the floor. Tommy turned back to Lucy, his face twisted with something inhuman. Gabe didn't think. He reached for the knife on the bedside table. Maybe it had been left there on purpose, maybe not, and drove it deep into Tommy's back. Gabe sank to the floor. The tears began, and screams of torment flowed out of him. Lucy was stunned. She had never expected anything like this, and she sank to her knees.
Macca had fixed her up with a job up west. Relatively decent money, even after he would take his share. Enough for the rent, a few drinks, and a bite of food. Now Barney was lying about, moaning about his lot, no work again. Misery guts. Well, it had to be done. Mary Jane walked back on Shanks's pony, leaving behind the neat little house of an aging bookkeeper and heading once more into the grim, stinking desolation of Whitechapel. A quick livener before facing Barney. That was the plan. Then she saw him. Fucking Rigby. Just what she didn't need. God, she despised that feral weasel. He wasn't alone. He had a woman with him, coaxing her towards one of the narrow alleys that led into a rookery, his hand on her elbow, his mouth close to her ear. Mary Jane caught a glimpse of the woman's face and stopped dead. Maggie. The woman stiffened when she saw her, then quickly turned her head, shame written all over her. Mary Jane's stomach sank. She kept walking, but as she passed the mouth of the alley, she saw the pair vanish into the warren of passages. For a moment, she just stood there, torn. She'd hated the woman's tongue, the way she'd spat her down as scum, but she knew too well how fast life could drag you into the gutter. Pride and dignity didn't stand a chance when hunger and rent came calling. Mary Jane turned away, her jaw tight. Life had a way of breaking everyone sooner or later. Mary Jane reached the archway to Miller's Court. It was late, but Macca was still outside sweeping the pavement in front of his shop.
Thought you'd get your boy to do that,
she called. Macca grinned.
I'm like you, Mary Jane, not too proud to slum it.
She gave him the two-finger salute. He laughed.
Anyway, he's gone down to see his sister perform at the Cambridge.
He leaned on the broom, rubbing his hands together.
Well, how'd you get on?
Mary Jane raised her brows.
Oh, you want a blow-by-blow account, do ya?
Macca rolled his eyes.
That's not what I meant, and you bloody know it.
He held out his hand. She slipped the money into it.
Come inside,
he said, nodding at the shop.
I'll sort you out.
Mary Jane flashed her eyes at him.
Oh yeah? Will you now?
He gave her a flat look.
With your share, MJ. Christ, you get worse by the day.
She shrugged.
Not sure that's possible.
Macca chuckled, pushed the door open, and she followed him in.
You've got a point,
he muttered. Later, Mary Jane shoved open the door to number 13. Barney was sprawled on the bed, sulking as usual.
Fancy a beer, a roasty spud, and a sheep's trotter, big boy?
She asked, partly unwrapping her shawl from her shoulders.
Where'd you get the money?
He groaned, not looking at her. Mary Jane closed her eyes. Here we fucking go again.
Does it matter? I've paid some rent.
You enjoy your work, don't you?
He muttered, his back still to her. Her temper flared.
Don't fucking start, Barney. I'm not in the mood.
No, I don't want a beer or a sheep's bloody trotter.
She clenched her fists, half ready to throw something at him.
Well, suit your fucking self then, you miserable bastard. I've just about had my fill of you.
She slammed the door behind her and stormed down the narrow alley, nearly colliding with Julia. Startled, she asked.
You all right?
No,
she snapped, sharp enough to cut her dead. Julia blinked, taken aback.
Well, excuse me.
But Mary Jane was already gone, her anger boiling over. Ringer's gin stock was about to take a good bashing tonight. At least that was her intention.